All right, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Increase Your Mobile Workforce Productivity Through Optimization in 2021. And thank you all for joining. My name is Holly, and I'm on the Field Service Product Marketing team here at Salesforce. And I'm joined by Jason Kitchen, VP of Salesforce Solutions and Field Service Management over at NeuraFlash, and Chris Saxton, Director of Field Operations at United Site Services. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few quick notes about our webinar platform. Today's webinar will be available on demand after we wrap up and will be accessible through the same URL that you're on now. Please note that the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. And to enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located on the right-hand corner of your presentation window. Should you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. And we've also added some additional resources which are available through the resource window to the right of the slides. And there you'll be able to find additional related content, including demos, ebooks, and how to reach NeuraFlash after this webinar. Lastly, we encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Ask a Question widget at the bottom of your console. We'll answer as many questions as we can get to at the end of this presentation in our Q&A. And with that, let's get started. So a Salesforce webinar wouldn't be complete without our forward-looking statement. So please make your purchasing decisions based on products and services that are currently available today. And now I'd like to hand it over to Jason and Chris. Jason, can you hear us? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Jason, I can't hear you at all, sir.
Oh. Hello, everyone.
There we go.
And thank you for joining the webinar today. My name is Jason Kitchen. I run the field service practice here at NeuraFlash. Over to you, Chris.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here to talk to the USS journey that we've had using Salesforce Field Service, and we'll talk about everything as we go.
Awesome. So what we'll be covering today. So first off, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the companies that we work for, starting with NeuraFlash. Then I'll pass it over to Chris to talk through USS's history. And then we'll go through the full journey of USS, their Salesforce journey, why they chose the platform, why they chose NeuraFlash, kind of the full journey for implementing this solution. And then talk through what it's meant during these trying times with COVID and thriving within the pandemic and really how it's helped them through that. We'll talk through that. And then we'll share some lessons learned and what you can really take away from this webinar. So with that, a little bit more about myself. So my name's Jason Kitchen. As I previously mentioned, I've been working with Salesforce Field Service since it came to be back in 2016. And I work for NeuraFlash, which is a platinum consulting and ISV partner of Salesforce. And we're the go-to AI partner for Salesforce. And what that means is we're implementing really the cutting edge technologies on the platform, really around AI and service. And that kind of correlates very well with what we're talking through today, from Einstein bots to the full customer journey of Service Cloud, Field Service, as well as Experience Cloud. And as one of the fastest growing partners, we've actually, throughout even the pandemic, we've grown over 40% in the past 6 months. And what that, the real reason for that is the measurable outcomes and the relationships that we have with our customers and the success that we achieve together, which kind of leads to what you see on the screen here with our high App Exchange reviews, as well as our tremendous employee growth. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Chris, to talk through USS.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jason. Guys, USS we are providing portable sanitation services that offers portable restrooms, hand hygiene, temporary fence, and roll-off dumpsters. Truly more than anything, a temporary site service provider, right? We have locations basically in 26 states, 120 locations across those states, 3,500 employees. More than half of our employees are in a truck every day delivering or servicing portable toilets. As servicing these toilets have become more essential than ever during this pandemic that we're dealing with. We're on a mission. USS is truly on a mission to raise the standards of cleanliness and change the perception of portable sanitation. Historically, portable toilets have really been, on construction sites and have been cleaned one time a week, really, with the perception of being gross or even unsanitary. We're trying to change that overall. We believe that frontline workers who use portable restrooms every day deserve the same standard of cleanliness that anyone working in an office building would get. So we want to change that experience for them. We're driving the industry to shift cleaning portable restrooms multiple times every week to improve the experience for those frontline workers. Our new campaign now is Stay Safe and Stay Clean. As throughout the coronavirus outbreak, we've considered this nation's construction workers as our frontline heroes. And caring for those frontline heroes starts with the basics, like providing these crews a safe and clean bath. For years, they've settled for cleaning the toilets on job sites, again, just once a week, but that's no longer good enough. We are truly trying to understand the impact germs have on the world around us, and it's time to set a new standard. That's about USS. Let's go to the next slide. Go ahead, Jason, sorry.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that overview, Chris. I want us to talk through some of the challenges of before we implemented the solution.
Perfect, no problem. So pre-state challenges, right? So where we were before Salesforce and Salesforce Field Service, we had a lot of manual processes. So back the old USS days were really about you'd walk into a branch or service center and you would see a stack of paperwork on the left side of the desk that literally throughout the day would move completely to the right side of the desk. And those were hand-billed tickets that we would then fax in to a billing department who would then post those for us, to have billing completed. It was a almost, if you will, a 1980s way of doing things, and just really, just an old, antiquated way. We had to come of age. We had to get to a digital platform. Lack of real-time visibility. That's one of the biggest key things we had here. Looking again back on our challenges, with those antiquated systems, we really didn't have a way. We didn't have much reporting. We couldn't look at a lot of things in real time. Again, visibility in a real-time atmosphere. Where are the technicians? Who have they serviced? All that before was really either done by having to pick up a cell phone or literally wait till they got back to the branch to then kind of have a talking download of all the work that they did. And again, just had to get better at that. Tribal knowledge, another issue that we had where basically all of our technicians had all of that knowledge of when were we supposed, when could we be at a site. Don't go past 8 a.m. Let's just say it had to be between 5 and 8 a.m. Or don't, to a job site that closed down at 3 p.m. every day. All that was stuck inside the head of the technician, right? As every morning they would arrive to their job and we would hand them pieces of paper and tell them basically to go and route themselves. And they had to take all the information they knew along that route that they had done days, weeks, months, even years at a time, over and over. They had to then formulate a route to what was the best way to do that. Static routing, if you will. So those were some of our pre-state challenges, and we'll move on to the next slide.
Awesome, Chris. So with that said, how did that correlate, and could you talk through why Salesforce and why Salesforce Field Service for USS's business?
Yep. So, the old way, again, was, the old way of doing stuff. We had so many missing information, making everyone's job much harder downstream. So, the accuracy of information was something, it was paramount for us to get that all up front, right? So we're going to talk through, we'll talk about Salesforce coming in. That is more of a CPQ thing, coming in up front, getting all that information. But again, the downstream effect of FSL is where we were, what we really needed to make sure that we got from a much better information standpoint, we needed a system that could capture all that information so all these segments of business had the proper information to do their job. Proof of delivery and service was key in doing things, right? The old way really was writing on a sticker a initials of a technician, a date, and a time. That was the only way, in the old way of doing things, that we could prove that we were out to do a service. Right now, that has changed. Obviously, we'll talk about it soon with QR codes, and we can look at a timestamp and a geolocation of when and where that service was done. Enhance the quote to cash speed, right? Again, it's talking about, we needed to have an end-to-end seamless process for each of the various groups in the company to have the right information, again, to do their jobs properly. Getting more information up front with CPQ could definitely make all that servicing that much better. From the time you quote to collect cash, every group will need to have some sort of specific information collected up front, right? So before, they had to piecemeal that information together, and it just wasn't enough. Again, there was not a connection of the dots. So we had to make sure this was a seamless end-to-end process from quote to cash. And then one stream across the USS entire business. Again, we had different legacy systems all around for each segment of business. We wanted one platform that we could basically do everything from and flow all the way through. Go ahead, next slide, Jason.
Awesome, thanks, Chris. So after choosing the platform, could you talk through some considerations of what you were looking for in a partner and why you ended up choosing NeuraFlash?
Yeah, no problem. So, really when we had multiple companies come in and once we figured out which platform we wanted to use, we then had to figure out a provider who was going to help implement this for us, right? And I know basically, Salesforce did ask NeuraFlash to help with the demo. That was one of those key things for us, right? They came in kind of, already knowing exactly what was needed. Their overall knowledge of the platform itself was something that was evident through the quoting process, the entire way. And then really around the, when they provided their demo, they tailored to our challenges, not so much showing us all the bells and whistles that Salesforce Field Service had. They thought through and looked at all the things that would give us hurdles and challenges and really cater to that. And that really, stuck home with us, and one of the biggest reasons why we went with NeuraFlash. But I'd like to segue, real quick though, into some of the things that, what did our partnership include? I'd like to highlight, some of the things that NeuraFlash did well throughout our entire implementation throughout everything. So, talking through that is really, we were one unified team, right? There was not so much an us and them. From the very beginning, they really walked the walk, I'll say. They truly embedded themselves into our business. Many weeks and hours spent in a boardroom trying to understand all the idiosyncratic things that, our business entails. Again, wanting to learn more for us to go down every avenue to make sure that not only the mobile flow was right, but all the Gantt chart stuff, it all made sense, right? So again, they worked hand in hand, and truly then, not only, fast forwarding a bit of time, when we started going to one pilot site, and then again, a second round of pilot sites that we had 3 more all across the country, they dived in and came to those sites with us. It wasn't a, hey, you guys go do this and report back to me. Again, I want to commend NeuraFlash for doing that, because it felt more than anything, again, like one team, one group, that we were all in this together. Crisp and clear communication, right? Bad news travels fast. We kind of, my boss, George, talks about it all the time. And that's one of those things where we were upfront with each other the entire way. We tried to make sure, if there was something that we couldn't do in the time that we needed, that we made sure that we bubbled that up extremely fast to where we could then come up with a solution that would work for us for the request that we asked for. And then lastly, right, the access to anyone at NeuraFlash, whether it's Jim or Jason or Jess or even Amarutha, right, the project manager that I work side by side with, everyone is accessible. It doesn't matter who you ask, for help with. Everyone will come back to you with an answer, or give you a direction of, hey, this might be the person to go to. So we had instant access with everyone whatsoever. There was no one off the table. It was just a great working relationship that we had.
It's certainly been a fun journey that ended up here with us giving a webinar, Chris. So it's been a fun ride, and we'll kind of dive into kind of how we did things next and what the goals for the implementation and kind of correlate to the initial challenges next. So if you could talk through some of the initial goals and how that would solve some of the initial challenges that you had prior to choosing Salesforce and NeuraFlash.
So again, much like the pre-state challenges, which kind of go hand in hand here, the standardization process that we had, again, with 120 locations and over 160 acquisitions that we've had in our 20-year existence, there was 20 to 30 different ways of doing things, right? We had an old legacy system where basically from a regional perspective, everyone was doing things kind of their own way. And we just didn't have all of those processes. There was no standard operating procedure really around that. And that was one of those big things we wanted to make sure when we implemented Salesforce Field Service, that all of those processes, everyone was working off the same page. Everyone was basically rowing in the same lack of real-time visibility into ops. That was another one. Again, we had to, we had to make sure that visibility was one of the biggest things we had. We wanted to know when a tech, where was the tech at? When was the tech servicing units? What, how, if a job site was usually supposed to take 10 to 12 minutes and it took him 30 minutes, we wanted some sort of alert or an indicator to know that that was what was going on, right? So one of those things that we wanted to be able to make better decision-making skills throughout the day, just so we could see, if a technician was running behind and you had another technician that was running ahead, well, maybe we could then move some appointments to that other tech. Thus, that teamwork atmosphere of all of us getting the job done, better all at the same time. And then again, tribal knowledge and resistance to change. We came from, as I explained earlier, really about the way we had technicians. We'd hand them 40 pieces of paper and say, here is your route. Really, they were doing the routing themselves. So to have that change in shifting where we had an algorithm that was predicting an order for them to do every day, that was something that, again, they were very resistant to. So there was a lot of, we put in a lot of work here to show them the map view and the sequential order and how it makes sense. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about maps here in a little while, but that map view was a game changer for us, right? We could now see, you could see points on a map during, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or one-time services only on the map. It opened our eyes, if you will, really to, all that was from a map perspective. And again, we'll talk about that here in just a minute.
Awesome.
Yep.
So to go a little bit further, I'm going to talk through some of those pre-state challenges, those goals that Chris just spoke through, and how do we actually do it? So when you think about the mobile workforce, a lot of that information that they have on site to be able to be more productive and understand what to do and when, that starts from the initial quote. So when we talk about quote to cash, the first step is, if you think about USS's business, they're renting assets. So setting up the correct products within the system and an easy interface to simply ensure, first off, do we service this area as a quote comes in, adding the correct products, as well as the different services. So as Chris talked about, within the coronavirus era, having to scale their business, it really started first with the quote process and collecting all the right information that will then display to the technician once they're on site. So within 5 minutes, if I am performing a quote for USS, I'm able to put together the different products that customer will be renting, the amount of services that USS will perform. Now that could be once per week, it could be twice per week, it could be 3 times per day. So collecting all that information up front within upstream in the process, and then automating that entire process from generating the quote, generating the order, generating the service contracts based on the different products. When do we need to be on site? So that downstream within the system, field service understands what assets need to be delivered, number one. And then once we deliver that, where is it actually located? and how can we then build the best schedule to deliver those assets and generate the services and optimize those routes. So that was really the first step, is we need to collect all the right information for the customer. And some of these orders might have multiple sites that we need to dispatch technicians to. So making that an easy to do process on the desktop as well as mobile in the field to quickly put together quotes. And as an output of that, if you think about field service and maintenance plans, what that means is we're going to be generating recurring work. So you can see to the right-hand side, you'll see a few different images popping up. So right there's the dispatch console. And you can see there's just a very large volume of work that USS has per day. I think the most recent statistic is they're doing 70,000 service appointments a day with multiple optimization runs. We're able to take all of that work and optimize up to 300,000 appointments for United States services per day. And how are we doing that? So we're leveraging field services, I'll call it an algorithm or different rules and objectives based on what's important to USS. So with those different sites, some of the technicians might need a certain certification to go on site. They may have camaraderie with the customer, and we want to make sure that they perform that service. Or we want to take into account labor capacity, truck capacity. There's a lot of different elements that go into optimizing a schedule. So the first step, which we talked about in the previous slide, is generating all the maintenance events that we need to then go work. And then with Salesforce Maps, we created a visualization for the operations coordinators, who are their dispatchers, to be able to visualize. You can see on the right-hand side now, visualize where all the work is. And before field service, USS went through a rerouting process. So if you think about their business, it's temporary sites, and the appointments will change very rapidly. And it took hours or days to reroute a branch in the past, where essentially they're able to use field service to dynamically route every single day. And then once we generate all this data, which it's hard for a human to really understand what's going on, we visualize that with Salesforce Maps. And also we've given the ops coordinator some tools to be able to actually directly update the data from Salesforce Maps. So one other interesting use case and solution that was built with this implementation is Salesforce Maps has a feature to build territories based off actual census tracts or your actual appointment data. And then we were able to take those territories, which takes quite some time to artfully put together, but utilizing the census tracts, we were able to streamline that process and then automatically push that into Salesforce Field Service. So as work comes in, based on the latitude, longitude of that work, we're able to assign it to the right USS location, which then assigns it to the right technician, and then is sent to Field Service Optimization to put together the best schedule. So last but not least, if we talk about mobile productivity, USS has a lot of assets. So we utilize Service Cloud to store all of their assets, all of their units. And this is serialized assets. So each unit has a QR code, and it takes some time to go around and scan all of those into the system. So the technicians are actually able to scan the units, create the assets directly from their mobile app. And what that allows them to do, so we quote the order in CPQ, that generates the service contracts, the maintenance plans. Once the delivery is complete, what that actually does is since the asset has a QR code on it, the technician is able to scan the QR code into the system and mark it as delivered and relate it to that customer. And it actually drops the latitude, longitude to be able to track and make sure that we know where that unit is. And we'll get to the next part, which is on the right-hand side. the screen's moving pretty fast, but when the technicians get on site, it could be a really large construction site. So if you think about before field service, the technicians were mostly going to the same sites all the time, so they knew where to find the equipment once they were on site. Now, this was a big hurdle when technicians were going to new sites and they didn't necessarily know where to go once they got there. So what you're seeing on the right-hand side is after getting all the assets in the system and tracking their latitude, longitudes with the QR codes, we were able to visually show the technician where all the units were, the assets were on site, and they can simply click on the unit and say, take me there. So some of these sites, have roads that they could have to drive miles to. So if you think about going somewhere and not knowing where to go, this solved that problem, which definitely helped with adoption and change management of the dynamic routing as the technician's schedule changed day by day.
And Jason, I can jump in here. I mean, look, that was a game changer for us. Just as you really said, having technicians that had been doing the same routes for months, years on end, and then them being forced to go to a different job site, let's just say, the big thing was, hey, I don't even know where to go. If it's a massive, let's say, agriculture customer and it's acres of fields and there are units all over the place, they didn't know where to go. So again, with us being able to have this find assets feature, it really took all of that sting out where, you could get turn-by-turn directions to then go and find out where the last known location was of that unit. So the last time it was scanned. Again, complete game changer for us and worked very well.
Awesome. And I just talked through a lot, and what that encapsulated was actually most of the Salesforce platform with USS utilizing Sales Cloud, CPQ to put together the quote, the order management module within CPQ to track the actual orders and the amendments to those orders, as well as Service Cloud to track the service contracts, track the assets, and then field service to really fulfill all those orders and give the technicians a very intuitive experience to just simply scan the units when they're on site.
In addition, and really through our home builder sector, where potentially there may not be actual addresses yet in brand new subdivisions, this was able for us, we use this information here. So when a technician would go into a subdivision and he had 20 stops, he would use that find assets feature to look at where everyone was. And, didn't have to go to the very front to then figure it out. He truly could see on a map view on his phone exactly where each stop was throughout the neighborhood.
Yep. And the system automatically optimizes the schedule going forward for the operations coordinator. So they simply just have to come in and make sure that the schedule looks good and maybe make some amendments based on the previous day's work. But that took a process that took hours upon hours each day and automated it, as well as the system will send out and dispatch the work to the technicians. So as they come in the morning, they simply see their schedule and they're able to go out and complete the work.
Yep.
All right. So after talking through that, Chris, why don't you talk about some of the success and the measurable outcomes that were enabled with this implementation? Perfect.
So, I think that the biggest thing that I know our executive team would say has been the visibility factor, right? When it comes to reporting, when it comes to, being able to tell where technicians are from an area manager level, what has been completed throughout the day. Are we behind? Are we ahead of schedule? The overall visibility has totally been a game changer. Identify where USS can improve and where we can excel. We can look at reporting really now where we couldn't before to see, is there load balancing, right? Is there a way that we potentially, we have one technician, we're putting just too many stops on him, and we can then go and look and say, all right, well, this tech has 50 stops and this tech has 30. Well, maybe we should make it where they both have 40. Now, maybe there may be a reason why that has so many stops, that technician has so many stops, but nonetheless, now we have the information to go and look at it and figure out the why, right? And we can make much more informed business decisions, right? So we can see, are we properly staffed, right? I know, year over year from 2019 to 2020, we're up 23% on services completed, right? As Jason said, that's 70,000 services a day. That's 16 million services last year alone. So, we're trying to make sure that we're staffed properly, that, we have enough people to do the work that we have. In addition to looking at our pipeline to see what's coming, that way we can then see, do we need to staff up early so we don't get caught later with not having enough technicians to do the work, right? And then getting everyone on the same processes as we just, talked about before. Faster quote to cash, CPQ, collecting all the information for that way a quote can be turned into an order in Salesforce Field Service. That way, our ops team can do exactly what they need to do. They can deliver, they can service, and then they can pick up units, amongst other things that they could possibly do. And then quick to scale, again, Swifty roll acquisitions. So, make no bones about it. We talked about it earlier. I think we're up to 160 acquisitions in our 20-year existence. We're going to continue down that path. And, we need to have a good, end-to-end process on how to have acquisitions that, generally they're just mom and pop shops, right, that we acquire. And that, they have, they're just on those pieces of paper systems as we talked about earlier. And we have got to get them up, their sales piece into CPQ to then have it flow into Salesforce Field Service. All right, next slide.
You got it, Chris.
All right, got it. What helped us with our success, right? Selling the team on field service. Again, I want, the next point also addresses this, but look, the overall map feature, being able to go into a branch and show them sequential orders of a technician is game changing, right? Something we never had before. We showed different, we brought people in pre-COVID, let's say, we brought people in really to come and look at it, and we showed them people all across the country so that word could be spread that, this system was coming and how great of a tool it was. Right. Again, leveraging maps to visualize appointments. We can look at a branch's full week's worth of appointments. We can look at the Monday, Wednesday, Friday appointments. We can look at the one-time services and see if they need to be moved to a different day because maybe we're there on Tuesday or Thursday and that one-time service is on a Wednesday. We can move all that stuff now or have visual to potentially make that decision to move it. Right. And then we leverage WalkMe. WalkMe is another company that's much more in the training space. And what that is, it's almost like a follow the bouncing ball type of learning. And what it does is it walks you through all the steps in needing to do a very specific item within Salesforce Field Service. And what we're using it for is any enhancements or any training that we need to go back and do, or if we realize that, there's a subject matter within Salesforce Field Service that people aren't getting. Well, now we can do tutorials within WalkMe that then shows them how to do that. Or a new enhancement, new process that comes out, we can actually go in and show them how to do it using WalkMe, not having to have someone over the top of them, behind them to show them in these pandemic days. All right.
Yeah, but I will just mention that we had to pivot very swiftly from a mostly in-person training and in-person rollout strategy to fully remote. I would say post-March of this past year, and one of the crucial items to that was how do we roll this out? How do we train this and keep driving the organizational change? So I would say getting the operations team more involved and educating them on how the nuts and bolts of the system work so they can understand and really utilize it and own it to run the business. And then also from a technician's perspective, even rolling on a new technician, having the ability to, I'm not sure if everyone noticed, but on one of the previous slides, it actually has WalkMe embedded directly within the mobile app. So if you're a technician, maybe you're new, maybe you speak a different language, the mobile app is catered to you as well as provide step-by-step guidance throughout the day as you're completing your stops and services.
Thank you, Jason. All right. How is field service helping during COVID, right? I know Jason just kind of touched on that, but, ability to scale our business in the changing environment, right? We did over a 6-month period, we did 85 locations That was probably, I would say, between 10 and 15 branches every 3 weeks. It was a continuous cycle of, pre-work, training, go live, rinse and repeat, and a very consistent basis of us, going forward with that. We've here from the ability to scale the business in our change, we had to really pivot once COVID hit. We actually rolled out to about, I want to say it was 14 branches in the month of March, right before COVID hit. And we throttled all that back and we pulled everything back, going to the way we used to do things, to then have Salesforce field service, all the enhancements that we looked at, and we catered to the teams that we rolled out for that 1 week. And we figured out exactly what we needed to work on and exactly how are we going to roll this out from a virtual standpoint, knowing, there was no real end in sight of, gone were the days of go to a hotel conference room and you had 20 computers and everyone learned how to do something, right? We couldn't just do that anymore. So we had to, obviously, as most people on this call, become Zoomers and figure out exactly how to make sure that this works properly from a virtual world, right? That pivot to hygiene, again, our increased services year over year, up 23%. That hand hygiene more than anything, obviously in these pandemic times is just one of those things that just soared our services through the roof, right? And us being the leader in the industry, we're striving to change that perception of the old porta potties, if you will, right? The negative connotation that goes against our industry. We want to be that leader of change, and we want to make sure that we're leading from the front there to make sure that, that negative connotation goes away. That, again, as we said before, that that everyone has a great experience when they go into one of our portable sanitation units. And then remote training, right? Obviously, Jason kind of touched on it earlier, quickly onboarding technicians remotely, right? So WalkMe has helped us more than anything, as well as, we tell them ride-alongs as well, right? So we no longer do we have to have people embedded in, we don't have to have a SWAT team, if you will, to go into each and every branch so everyone then learns how to do something. Now we can do it virtually. Again, we can have small classes, or even have, most of the time technicians can just use WalkMe all by themselves. Some sort of remedial training would be riding along with the technician that obviously understands how to use Salesforce Field Service extremely well. But, all in all, it stopped that rollout process for us very much, got minimized, and we didn't have to go to each and every one of the 120 locations that we had across the U.S. Next slide, Mr. Kitchen.
All right, Mr. Saxton, what were the lesson learned from the business perspective?
Yeah, perfect. So if I could wave a magic wand and, and say, what did we learn, or what did we learn on the fly? Look, building a better support team as more and more locations came online. So we had a support team in place once we went live with the first 14 branches. And that support team basically stayed the exact same people throughout our 8 rollouts, right? And what I'm saying, lesson learned is, about halfway through, I would have added more support staff. That's more than anything, that's on me for not doing that. We are now up, our staff has been brought up to speed and we have more people there. But nonetheless, that is something that I take away, is I wish I would have done that better and brought more people to the support team earlier to help us with, the data issues and stuff like that we had. Another thing is getting operations on board earlier, right? We kind of had we flew people in February of 2020 to then, to show them some of the results that we had from the pilots, show them exactly what was going to be coming. I wish we would have done that earlier, right? I wish we would have, brought more people in, not just, leaders from the business all around. I just wish we would have brought more people in. I think we would have got even more buy-in and more excitement to what was coming. So again, 2 of the biggest things that I had for lessons learned really was more support team and making sure we got the excitement out in the business just that much more.
Awesome. What's next, Chris?
What's next? So obviously we're going to continue to enhance our field service product. We're on, I think, sprint 10 of and we got 11 to go, 10 and 11 to go, I know of. And we're just, obviously making improvements, connecting CPQ, Service Cloud, Field Service, and Maps all together. They are connected today, but nonetheless, just making that even more of a seamless process, each and every enhancement that we put in, onboarding business units and acquisitions, right? So again, we have other systems that we had through acquisitions that we left them on legacy systems, and now we need to go get that route-based sanitation system put into CPQ to where it can flow into Salesforce Field Service. So we're working through doing that. And then lastly, utilize CPQ and Salesforce Field Service for trailer reservations, right? So we have I want to say it's 2,500 units, don't quote me on that, 2,500 units trailers that are specialty trailers, if you will, laundry trailers, shower trailers, and also restroom trailers. And we're working now to build in a trailer reservation system to where that way we can, have a better way of servicing our customers. As of right now, we're working off of spreadsheets, if you will, and that's still a manual process for it. We want to encompass that into what we're doing to where we can make sure that, we utilize and are the most efficient with all of our assets there.
Awesome. So Chris, could you share some key takeaways for the group here?
Definitely. So, I highly recommend, investing in a good partner to help guide you. That was, one thing along the way. We had NeuraFlash and their team of core people that were assigned to our project stayed with us the entire time. To this day, they're still with us. I call on Amarutha probably 4 or 5 times a day in constant communication. Just obviously right now we're in sprint 10 and we're working to build on those enhancements that we have now. Establishing a change management strategy, right? We dealt with, again, people that were doing the same routes over and over, and we had to work in, and prove to them how this, this algorithm that was predicting the route that they had, we wanted to take that off of their plate. We didn't want them to have to deal with that anymore. So, establish that change management strategy and showing them how this was going to work and how this was going to be better for them overall. Definitely a huge, huge win. Right? And then prepare for success, right? Clearly define all those success criteria leading to measurable outcomes, right? Again, I would tell you, success for us has been visibility. I can't say it enough. My boss and I talk about it all the time from either a missed services standpoint or load balancing, or even, do we need to hire 3 more techs in our San Jose branch, right? All of that from a visibility standpoint is really a true testament of the success that we've had with Salesforce Field Service.
Yep, I'll piggyback on that, Chris. I think clearly defining the success criteria and the intent of the implementation will help us as the partner kind of define what the optimal path is, and then how do we, once that's implemented. I think change is hard. The hardest part of technology implementations is really the change portion. So us collaborating with the USS team, as well as being able to pivot to a fully remote digital training strategy was very helpful. And I think this kind of the situation the past 12 months almost has really given us all the opportunity to rethink how we do things and innovate upon that. All right, so I think we can open it up for Q&A.
Awesome. Just as a reminder to everyone, there is a widget on the bottom of the screen where you can submit a question. So if you have any questions in the next few minutes, we'll try to answer them there. But this first question that came in is for Chris. Okay. What would you say is the USS optimization objective? Was it your SLAs? Was it overtime?
Our optimization objective, so in its most basic form, again, we had people that were taking 40 pieces of paper and routing themselves. The overall objective was to get our technicians to not have to route themselves, right? We needed an instrument that would do the routing for us, right? So I think the overall objective was just get the technicians from doing the routing themselves and having an automated process in doing that. right? So where we could then obviously manually manipulate if we needed to, but our overall goal was to get 90% correct, right? That way, you could then go and cherry pick and just fine tune anything that potentially the algorithm wouldn't think of or there was no way to input that data. So overall, that was it, to get the technicians from routing themselves.
Yeah, I can add a little context there as well. So as far as objectives, I would say the core objective was minimizing travel. Now there was customer SLAs, there was we had promised the customer we would be there within a certain time on certain days. Different sites have different hours, so we needed to build that within the logic to ensure that the technicians were there at the right time. Now, years and years and years of tribal knowledge was a barrier to get that into a systematic approach. And then from overtime, from a safety perspective, DOT compliance, so looking at the actual labor capacity and the technicians and the workload that they have, having visibility to that and the actual, based on the amount of work that they have, making sure that coupled with the amount of driving that they're under the DOT compliance hours of service.
Great. Another question is, what are ways organizations should look at measuring success for a field service project? For either one of you.
Chris, you want to go first?
I didn't hear the question. Can you say it one more time?
Oh, sure. Yeah. What are ways organizations should look at measuring success of a field service project?
It's kind of an extremely broad question. I'd probably need to know more details about kind of what industry it is and overall. I don't want to give a wrong answer here, but I think there's a lot of ways you can go with that answer. Not trying to pawn it off or anything, but nonetheless.
Well, you can pawn it off on me, Chris. So that's fine.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I think from a field server, well, just from a generic Salesforce perspective, clearly defining success criteria and the outcomes that we'd like to achieve out of the system, and making sure that those are measurable within the beginning of the implementation. If you think about designing a new system, if you don't have the end in mind in terms of the outcomes or KPIs that you want to extract, then you might not be setting up the actual data structure to be able to understand that. So when USS talks about visibility and being able to make impactful decisions very swiftly, part of that is what decisions do they want to make, what visibility do they need, and making sure we have the structure and the system to pull all of that out to really get the ROI and have measurable business results.
Yeah.
All right. One last question before we wrap up. This just came in. Is all routing dynamic by service center or location, or is it optimized by service tech territory?
So great question. You can actually do both, and I'll kind of speak for Jason here. You can, we have an automated optimization that actually happens overnight. And then if there's any tweaking or anything that needs to happen, you can actually do what's called an RSO, a resource service optimization. So that being said, if you make changes to that technician on the Gantt chart, then you can then actually go in and re-optimize just for that one specific technician.
Awesome. All right, well, I think that's all that we have time for today. So thank you so much, Jason and Chris. As we wrap up, I do want to share some resources with everyone here. In the resource widget on the right, you'll be able to connect with NeuraFlash and schedule a free custom demo, optimization tuning, or even a health check. And then you can also learn more about Salesforce Field Service and watch a Salesforce demo. And we're also including a link to an ebook and our Schedule Hero game, which is super fun, where you can see if you can optimize a schedule faster than a computer. So with that, as a reminder, today's webinar will be available on demand using the same URL that you're on now. And again, thank you so much, Chris and Jason, for that amazing presentation. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.